This is Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. When I think about the critical issues facing Black and Brown residents in the St. Louis area, I often ask the questions: how did we get here? What's holding us back? And how do we progress? At 9 PBS, we want to deepen our understanding and change the narrative. Join me as I look for answers and discover solutions on today's podcast. The holiday season is here. Today, on a special episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel, we get a return visit from therapist Dr. Candice Cox, also known to our Teaching in Room 9 viewers. Let's figure out how to handle holiday stress and the holiday blues. The National Alliance on Mental Health says African Americans are 20% more likely to experience serious psychological distress than members of other racial groups. And because the losses suffered during the pandemic are still being felt, how should we approach the holidays if sadness, grief, or dysfunction is a part of our lives? How do we recognize and address the impact of unrealistic expectations? We get advice and a little bit of healing next on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center, the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation, and Orvin and Latrice Kimbrough.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to you from Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel and everyone here at 9 PBS. And of course, because it is the holidays, we are all thinking about the food we're going to eat, the gifts we're going to buy and receive. And we're also thinking about how do we handle the stress of the holidays. It is much more difficult for some than others. And as you heard me in the intro, much more difficult for African Americans in particular. And since we focus on Black and Brown folks here at Listen St. Louis, I thought I would bring back, you're the first guest to make a return appearance.
Oh, welcome.
Dr. Candice Cox, thank you. Thank you with Chaos Theory. It's always so good to see you, and I'm grateful for all the information that you provide, not only here, but on Teaching in Room 9. As a matter of fact, when I was walking in this morning, you were out in our media commons on the big screen doing some Teaching in Room 9 work. What is Chaos Theory again?
And so the chaos mindset is keep healing and overcoming struggles.
Keep healing.
Yes, it's continuous. And that's the thing that we always want people to understand, that healing is not a linear process. If it was a straight line, it would be great, but it's not. And so we have to understand that, life happens, but just because it happens, it doesn't have to stop. So therefore, as we create our new normals, we keep healing and overcoming struggles.
So that means the happiest time of the year, is not that.
No.
And so you must keep healing through
Yes.
the happiest time
Yes.
of the year.
Yes, because it's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Ooh.
That's
You already hit me in the heart, girl.
It is, you got people that, and it's oftentimes the people that got the prettiest decorations and have the biggest lights up and have the Christmas sweaters and all of that. They got all of that going on, and then on the inside, it feels like they behind bars and they just looking out and watching life happen. And that's hard.
And so it is even more difficult. I wrote down grief, sadness, loneliness, and the lingering effects of the pandemic.
Yeah, because we listen, 2020 is like that year that didn't happen, but it did.
In a big way.
In a big way. And the movie Encanto, when they say we don't talk about Bruno, like I'm realizing that, now the more we go forward, we start acting like 2020 was like a blur, and we just keep on going. And it's like, no, because, the trauma response freeze. A lot of us are still frozen, where we're still
this many years later.
Right, where we're still moving physically, but mentally we are checked out. We're on autopilot. It's so many people that are just waking up to go to sleep. Because they lost so much in 2020.
Yeah.
So many, there were jobs that were lost. There were loved ones that were lost. There were relationships that were lost. Like all of these things that you can't get back. Or, we try so hard to go back to where it used to be and not be able to embrace it so that we can create something new, that we're still stuck in yesterday.
And so because there was so much grief in the Black community, that was not dealt with.
Yeah.
I know that there are many school districts that did try to address the grief that their students were facing, especially in the city, in urban settings. But grief unaddressed, what's the effect of grief that isn't addressed?
And so, you have those long term, I talk a lot about toxic and traumatic stress. And so like grieving, that's a traumatic stress. And so you look at the physical things that happen. I talk a lot about somatic things. So, start having headaches and don't know where they're coming from, tummy aches and you don't know where they're coming from, you picking up weight and don't know why, you starting to have all these body aches, you can't sleep, brain is racing. Like those things start to happen and you like, what is going on with me? And it is the time to sit and look and ask yourself, what happened to me? What happened to me and how did it impact me? When was the last time I felt this? And a lot of people, if they think about the last time they felt something, it was possibly during a loss. Whether you're grieving the loss of a person, you're grieving the loss of a pattern that used to be a certain way, you're grieving the loss of, just the life that you used to live that you don't live anymore. And so now you have all of these domino things that are happening afterward, and it don't always show up at the same time. Because sometimes you can be triggered by something and then it just, boom, there it is. I was good. And then all of a sudden a show popped up on the TV.
Or I heard a song or I smelled something.
I walked past somebody and they smelled like my daddy.
My goodness.
You know what I'm saying? And now I don't understand why I'm all jacked up. And it's like, okay, I got to go back and I got to figure out when did this start. But it's a root to it. You just got to figure out where the root is.
I feel like, and I believe, I should say, that some of the things we are witnessing are the result of the losses during the pandemic. And you said loss of patterns.
Yes.
And so kids who were in school every day, that structure, structure represents a very necessary part of our lives.
It does.
And then that is ripped away.
Literally ripped. Like I went to school and then I went on spring break and then I never went back.
Yes.
Just I had to have a really big heart-to-heart with my daughter. She is a freshman in college. She was also a freshman in high school during the pandemic. And so I remember when she got to her sophomore year and I'm like, what's going on? You should be able to do this. What's happening? And she looked at me and she said, the last time that I was in a school, I was in the 8th grade. I was in middle school, and now I'm a sophomore. She was like, I'm expected to act like a sophomore, but I'm still an 8th grader. And I was like, whoa. And that hit me. And now those kids are in college.
My goodness.
And and we didn't necessarily go back and teach them some of the stuff that they lost.
The social and emotional
things, And so now, like, the heightened anxiety and different things like that in certain situations, the confidence has been an issue as well in regard to, I had this, I was able to do things this way, and now it's like, I don't know, maybe I didn't learn that, I'm not sure. And the anxiety that comes behind that, all that stuff is starting to come up, and I have to constantly give her pep talks and be like, you got everything that you need, and whatever you feel like you don't have, we can get it.
So this is important because this is Dr. Candice Cox letting us peek inside her house.
Yes.
So the therapist is experiencing the very thing that so many of us are experiencing.
Yes.
I think, and one reason I wanted to have this conversation is because I realized some years ago that I have these expectations of what I want the holidays to be.
Yes. Yes.
And then I married a man from the Caribbean.
And you was like, wait, you're not following the script that I wrote for you in our life.
And he does not have near the same expectations.
Yes.
And a part of his he has zero. He does not care. He thinks the holidays are over commercialized. The tree, the lights, all that. He doesn't care about that. He's like, why are we spending this extra money? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How much money did you spend? Every Christmas, we open something. Well, I did. He literally would say these words. I'm laughing now, but I'd be crying on Christmas Day. Okay. I didn't need this. And I'm like, your sons are watching you.
Right.
I'm watching you.
It's from the heart.
This is from the heart, dude.
And he like, I ain't need this.
So I realized some time ago this is about my expectations.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
you know, whether I feel like that's a rude comment or not when you open the gift, that's a whole nother story. But
yeah.
let me just address me.
Yes. You know, I often say, you know, as part of our free skill, I say we often hurt our own feelings on an everyday basis because we expect us out of other people.
And they're all failing.
You know?
They're all failing.
I just had to, my son asked for something the other day, and when I responded, he said, that's not what you were supposed to say.
Oh.
And I told him, I said, I'm sorry, I don't know the lines to the script that you've written for me in your life, son, because I can only show up as myself. But how often do we write lines for people
for sure.
in our lives?
Oh,
and
my
then when they
goodness.
don't follow up with it, we like, wait,
Our
that
feelings are hurt.
scene two, you wasn't supposed to say that.
Yeah.
And they like, well, that's not who I am.
So I just had a thought too.
Yes.
I probably should stop watching all these Hallmark Christmas movies.
Yeah, because they got you with this unrealistic
me.
thought
They've always
process
had me.
that this is what it's supposed to be.
yeah,
But I
it's
used to feel
never
like that way about romance and about love stories
sure,
and
for
different
sure.
things like that. And then I had to realize that, baby, somebody wrote this and they cast this and somebody practiced this.
Yes.
But this
And the
isn't
snow
what-
is fake.
Right, but this isn't what it looks like in real life.
Not at
and
all.
And I think that, you know, especially during the holidays, that's one of the biggest things is that we have to not have unrealistic expectations. We have to really look at where we are. We have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable because that's the biggest thing. Like grief, I tell people all the time, grief, depression, you know, anxiety, all of those things, they don't have a timetable. Like they will pop up on you out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, I have to give myself permission to feel my way through this. And usually we want to not feel. Usually we want to not deal. We want to just go from, I don't like how this feels, so now I want to be happy. But it's our emotions are a spectrum, and we have to allow ourselves to go through them and to feel our way through.
So I did something different in preparing for your arrival. I asked the question on Facebook and Instagram, are the holidays difficult for you? Sadness, disappointment, anxiety, or grief impact many. How are you handling it? What would you ask a therapist? I'm interviewing my friend, Dr. Candice Cox, today on the podcast. And so we did get several questions. And one of those from Amy Hunter, who has been a guest on this podcast.
I know Amy. Hi,
We
Amy.
adore
Yes.
Amy Hunter. She was one of my first 5 guests, I think. She said hard yes. And I would ask, what can I do differently this year to not be sad?
And so the thing is this, you can do everything and still end up being sad. And so, you know, the thing is, you know, first of all, like communicate, talk to people, let people know how you feeling, let people know what you need. If you know what you need,
If you know
what you need, you know, tell people what it is that you need. You know, try your best to surround yourself with things that, you know, that you like to do that bring you joy, but also don't be so hard on you. Give yourself grace, because if sadness comes on in, it's like, all right, I feel you, you are here, I acknowledge you, but I also want to make space for you. That's the biggest thing, because we don't allow ourselves to be sad.
I'm supposed to make space for sadness
Yeah,
instead of trying to get rid of it
No,
or eat it or shop it away or
'cause
exercise it away,
Yes,
or
because-
some of y'all are sexing it away,
Right, because
drinking
that
it
is
away.
fleeing, and that is a trauma response.
That's a trauma
Yes,
response.
that's
It isn't
flight.
healthy.
And it's not. It's maladaptive. Because at the
Okay.
end of the day, when the snacks are gone, when you done sweat it all out, when the sheets is dry, at the end of the day, when all that, it all comes back.
It's all it never left.
You know,
really.
and that's
You
it.
just
And so
covered it up.
and so it's like, okay, let me sit in this, let me acknowledge it, like it is here. I'm making space for you, and it's okay to even say it sometimes. Like, you know what, I'm not in a space where I'm happy. I'm making space for that. But what does it look like for me not to be here? And that's the thing. Like, what does it look like for me not to be here? And what do I want to do? And you can practice some things to do something different, but sometimes you're just sad.
And I don't want to just be sad.
And that's the
Amy does not
thing.
want to just be sad. So how do I? She's saying, how do I not be sad? But then the other question is, how do I be happy?
How do I be
How can I
happy?
be joyful?
Yes, and it's like, do you want real joy or fake joy?
But we want real joy.
And
I would say
and-
for Amy.
yes, we want real
me,
joy. And
everybody,
so-
we want real
and
joy.
so it's like, you know what, Amy? Like, what are the things that you love to do?
Mm-hmm.
And do those things, and do them in moderation.
Okay.
And, you know, who are the people that you like to be around? Find your village. spend time with your village. You know, spend time with yourself.
Right.
That's important for you to do as well. But it's okay as well to acknowledge, like, I'm not in a good space right now. But you don't have to be in that space alone if you don't want to be.
When do you know that sadness is something that should be either medically addressed, and by medically I mean a therapist, not
Yes.
necessarily medication.
Yes.
But when do you know that sadness is something deeper that should be addressed?
When it completely shifts the way that your life goes. When you
Okay. Your
find
function.
yourself, yes, when you are not functioning, when you like, when they call it what you call the holiday blues. It's like when the blues is always, when it is all day, every day, when you can't find joy in anything, when you don't recognize who you are anymore. And that's a big one. You know, it's like I don't want to be around people. I'm always in the dark. I realize I'm not taking care of myself like I usually do. I'm not eating like I usually do. I'm snapping at everybody. I'm isolating
It's not all of these,
myself.
but any one of
right,
those.
but if any of these things are
Okay.
happening and it's okay, it was happening for a day or two, all right. It may have been happening for a week, but when you start getting to 3, 4, 5 weeks, months,
Okay.
years, it's like, okay, I may need somebody to help me with this. It's just like if you have a pain and you like, all right, I'm see how this is. I'm put some ice on it and see what happens.
it.
But then
Yeah.
after you done iced it for about 2 weeks and you still
Yeah.
having the pain, now you gonna go see somebody.
Even the back of the Motrin, Advil, all of them say
If this persists for this amount of time,
yes,
you know what I'm saying?
yes,
So it's like,
yes.
okay, if I don't win 14 good days and this is still happening, if I done had
time
2
to call.
Sundays,
Yeah.
Monday, let me call somebody.
get on your My Chart.
Yes,
yeah,
and let me
yes.
call somebody.
So then what is, if we feel the need, if you've identified any of those things that you just mentioned, then you need to find what we would call what is called culturally competent care.
Yes.
And because more Black people are seeking therapy,
Yes.
are self-identifying as I have anxiety, I have depression, there's something else going on, or I have a relative who's bipolar.
Yes.
They need help.
Yes.
Suicidal ideation. They need help and they need it now.
Yes.
So we want a Black therapist.
Yes. Yes. And we're out there. We are out there.
Yeah. Because she's right here.
I'm like,
But
we out there.
Okay.
And as one of the things is this, and even we want somebody that looks like us.
And why? Why is that necessary?
And it's very important because you need somebody that understands your background. You need somebody that understands, your beliefs. You need somebody that understands who you are, and has a common idea of it. Not necessarily you live the same life I live, but there are some things that are woven in between who we are as people. And it's good to have people that understand that. And so for me, I'm a therapist with a therapist, and my therapist is a Black woman. But I do have some people that come to me and they are Black women, but they want to see a Black man. And I'm like, all right, go on, sis.
Okay.
And if that's what you need, then go for it. But the whole thing about culturally competent care is being in an environment with a provider that is able to recognize, understand, and provide you with the safety in that space for you to wholeheartedly be yourself.
There are 2 comments that are related to women who've lost spouses. One several years ago, 5 years ago, the other even longer than that, 6.5 years ago, but both still experiencing difficulty during the holidays. And we talked about the pandemic loss that far so many Black families experienced.
And it goes back to understanding that grief doesn't have a time limit. And it's like we get to the thought process and we be like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so for those individuals, I need you to again give yourself grace. Recognize the things that trigger you so you can be aware of those things. Know if there are certain times of the year where things start happening so you can be aware and start kind of putting some things into place. But also give yourself space to feel, because you're grieving the loss and you're in the process of continuously creating a new normal. And and with that new normal, how do I bring all of these things together? How do I bring the love that I have for my spouse and the traditions and things that we once had into this space now where this person isn't physically here? What does that look like? And maybe there are certain things that you did with your spouse, and if you guys had children, y'all can kind of bring some of that stuff, in, or you guys can kind of create some new things and figure out, how do I add a flash of a favorite color or a favorite food or something
Right.
like that? Like, how do I create a new normal? And I know that I had a young lady that I was talking to years ago, and she lost her son. And she told me, she said, Candice, when you told me that I had to work toward creating a new normal, I thought you were saying that I had to forget the old.
Oh,
And I'm like, no,
no,
baby. The
no.
new normal is a compilation of it all.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Right.
And so that's it. It's like how I can't go back. I don't want to stay here. So what does that look like?
Right.
Then that means that I have to move forward, but I move forward with what I gained and what I experienced from there, and now I move that into something new.
I know you mentioned this before we started recording, that you were in Kansas City recently for a fatherhood conference,
Yes.
which I've taken as many notes as I can because I would like to bring that person here to St. Louis, focused on Black men.
Yes.
The holidays represent a time when families, whether you are ever married or not, you're sharing custody,
Yes.
or you're not doing it well.
Yes.
Even if you're doing it well, it can be a challenge.
Yeah, because we talk about adverse childhood experiences, and so one of those is like divorce or the loss of a parent, or it is sometimes when that co-parenting stuff ain't working right, I don't get to see my parent or different things like that, and it's parents. I just have to say to you, I need you to understand that your kids are living life with you. And so when I say that they are living life with you, I need you to understand that if you're having a hard time, I need you to check on your babies. It's not just about the adults that are involved. I need you to recognize that it has an impact on your babies too. And your babies haven't been living as long as you. So that means that, one, let's be clear that they ain't probably learned to lie about their life as well as you've learned to lie and cover up about yours. So they're going to act out more. You may see anger. You may see sadness. You may see withdrawal. You may see those things. And it possibly is because they have friends that are going to do certain things and their life doesn't look like that anymore. And so just take some time, have conversations, and don't personalize your baby's feelings about what's going on with them. That's the thing, because oftentimes as parents, if our kids tell us that something's going on and it got something to do with us, we become defensive and we personalize it. Them ain't your feelings. Like, I need for us as parents not to get so frustrated with our kids' frustrations because they got their own.
And so don't take that on, even though it is about you.
Yes, but don't take it on. Again, give space. Like, that's something that we have to learn how to do. We are so busy moving that oftentimes when it irritates us when someone doesn't respond to something the way that we want them to respond or need them to respond, because we got something else to do. But we got to give space. We got to sit in those spaces and have those conversations that are uncomfortable.
People who are sadly continuing to deal with dysfunction.
Yeah.
Things haven't been solved.
Yeah.
Things are even worse now than ever before.
Yeah.
I've heard from more than one person that I do not have Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner with my family. I have cut off some siblings.
And sometimes, listen, I think I just posted this on Facebook the other day where I said that, sometimes the people that cause you the most pain are the ones that are related to you.
Yeah.
And it's not on purpose, but it's that intergenerational trauma. And so, holidays can be those times, and let's just be clear, and this is a trigger warning, but it could be those times where all of the family is coming together, but you got that uncle that molested people for generations, and now Sarah sitting next to him because, that's your uncle so-and-so. Or you got these different things that have happened, and now these are triggers because this wasn't a comfortable time for me. I had to wear a mask. All of those, what happens in your house stays in your house. Things come back and surface when you bring the whole family together. And I'm going to tell you this, you ain't got to go.
I was just going to ask you that.
That's the biggest thing. You don't have to go. Don't make people make you be in situations that are harmful to you. You can love your relatives, but you do not have to harm yourself for you to be able to say you love them. If going to Christmas dinner at grandmama house, and you know that Uncle so and so gonna be there, Auntie so and so that always talk negative about you, and the way you raising your kids, and if it's an uncomfortable situation, why is it fair to you to take yourself and be in that? Why for the sake of taking the picture to say that we was all here? No,
No, because
that's
you are more important than
yes.
that.
You know,
So how
somebody
do
got
we
to
role
choose you.
play that conversation when you get to tell Granny
Yes,
that I'm not coming
because
this
Granny
year?
gonna be mad because
She will be mad, and
it
she will want to know why.
yes,
because she may not know
yes, and
what. Okay.
and you got to figure out how far you want to go because
Okay.
sometimes Granny do know. And Granny just be like, well, you know, that's your Uncle Charles, and we
Okay.
love him, you know. And it's like, and you can say, you know, Grandma, I love you, and you know, I'll come and see you after everybody leave, or I can come over and help you do some cooking before everybody come over, if that's what you know, if that's what you want me to do. But Grandma, I've come to a part in my life where I don't feel that it's fair to me to be in situations or around people that's harmful to me.
Right.
And I get it if you don't understand, but I have to do this for me. I love you.
And then that means
Yes.
you're gonna do that courageous thing, have that courageous conversation, but that could result in you perhaps being alone on
Yes.
Thanksgiving Day or
Yes.
Christmas
And
Day.
it's what choice do I have to make
Right.
here? But also what it does is this. Listen, your people that you are related to, your relatives are the people that you share blood with, but you can create your own family. And so that's something. And so maybe your family isn't the people that you share blood with. Maybe it's the tribe that you've created. And so maybe you feel comfortable going over to your friend's house and being with their family, or maybe you feel comfortable and you just want to be by yourself. You do a little something and watch your favorite movie or whatever. I need us to understand that it's important for us to realize that it is okay for us to do what's healthy for us and not feel that we have to please other people. Somebody in this world got to choose you. Let it be you.
Let it be you. And it is okay. I remember when I graduated from college, and I was living in Kansas City at the time. I'm in my early 20s. And when I went out to eat by myself for the first time. Now, this is 1987 or so.
So people thinking something wrong. Why
People
is that,
surely
why
thought
is
there
that
was
woman
something.
by herself?
She's gotten stood up or whatever. And it was a bold move on my part.
Yeah.
And I would have dinner by myself, and I would
Yes.
have candles,
Yes.
whole meal.
Because if you don't date you, how you gonna know what it feels
Yeah.
like to be dated well? Because who sets the standard? You. So that's beautiful. And it's like, even like when I went through my divorce, I did that. I took trips for myself. I dated myself. Like I was single for 5 years, and I did it all for myself because I learned that the relationship that you build with you is the most important relationship you're gonna build with a human being, because it sets the tone for how you treat you, but also the standard for how you allow others to treat you.
Now, you mentioned, that's your uncle and we love your uncle. What if it is your own mother and father?
Hey,
I would imagine that makes it even more difficult.
And it does make it even more difficult, and you have to make the decision. Am I going to decide to allow people to break me just because they're broken? Or am I going to recognize that some relationships may have to end or change because I don't like who I have to be to maintain that relationship? And so if I have spoken to you about how your actions make me feel, and you continue to do the same thing, then I'm going to let you be you. You just can't do that with me. So then I have to take myself out of the equation. And it's hard. Like, my mother is I'm so proud of my mom on her mental health journey, but there was a point in time where she was not in a good place. And I had to make that decision. And I backed away. And I didn't talk to my mom, I think, for almost 2 years. I'm my mother's only child. And so I missed the holidays. I missed the birthdays.
Wow.
I missed all that. And I had to deal with the phone calls of people telling me that I was wrong and that's your mama, and no matter what, you should do this and do that. And that's when I came up with the definition of toxic loyalty for chaos. And toxic loyalty is when you feel you have to be loyal to people just because of the role that they play in your life. And that's not fair to us. People don't get to hurt you just because they're hurting. You can understand that they're hurting, but you don't have to be a victim of their poor choices. And that's the thing. And so I had to recognize that through my childhood, I was a victim of certain things because she didn't know I was a kid. I had to deal because she was raising me. But as I got older and had my own children and recognizing I'm not going to continue to go through this, and my children are not going to go through this.
Which means
Which means that unless you get help, unless you acknowledge what's happening and do something different, I got to take us out of the equation, because I'm the problem if I keep subjecting myself and my kids to it when I know that it's a problem.
And so what can happen and what we know happens and what I know happens as a therapist seeing clients is that, yes, I'll remove myself from the situation, but it's a whole scene.
Yes. And
it's dishes, it's chairs. There is a fight, an argument, and I'm leaving and I'm out, and then I stay mad over here.
Yes. And it's more grief. You know what it is.
So that's not the way to remove yourself.
And so, like I say, we got free, which is forgive, release, embrace, and elevate.
Okay. Forgive, release.
Embrace, and elevate.
Okay.
And so in situations, and it's, I need to forgive myself for not being who I felt I should have been. I need to forgive other people for not being who I need them to be. I need to release people from the unrealistic expectations that I put on them. I need to embrace the situation for what it was, what it is, and for what it can be, from a place of love and compassion and not anger, frustration, hostility, and guilt. And then I need to elevate to a different way of thinking. And so when I do that, we say WHW, you look at what happened, how did it impact you, and then what do you want to do about it?
Okay.
Because you are not a victim in the situation. You are victorious. And so you look at your part, because we stay mad because we want to change other people.
Oh, is that
and
why
that's
we
the
say
thing,
that?
because
women, Candice, now you said that, and people are saying I'm mad because they did me wrong.
I'm mad because they did me wrong, and now I'm mad because they won't acknowledge it. I'm mad because they won't apologize. I'm mad because they won't say da-da-da-da-da-da. But we expect us out of other people.
And we expect them to be different.
And we expect them to be different, but they are who they are. So when you see people for who and what they are, and not for what you want them to be, and I say it all the time, you recognize patterns don't lie, people do. So you pay attention to the patterns, then you can decide how to deal with it. And you can say, you know what, all right, when you start talking like this or doing this, I know what's happening. Let me go ahead and exit stage left.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you be you. If you don't feel there's a problem with you being yourself, you be you, but you can't do that to me.
And you can't do that around me.
And you can't do it around me. So that means that if everybody else is going to accept that, I got to take myself out of the situation.
And so free again is?
Forgive, release, embrace, and elevate. And understanding that, yes, sometimes it is it's a blow up, because it's that emotions, and now it's a volcano, everything erupts, and now there's this big blow up. And it is before you go to apologize to everybody else, I need you to check on you first. Check on you.
Okay.
And then if you want to have a conversation to see if there's a restorative space, do it in the safety of your own self and emotions. And if you know that your words are going to fall on deaf ears, understand, sometimes we have to heal without the apologies that we feel or we know we deserve, because the people we're interacting with don't have it to give.
What are you hearing from, and I imagine you're hearing different things because men and women experience different things, experience life differently. What are you hearing from your clients who are women and your clients who are men, and how you're helping them to deal with those things?
So what is different is that my men don't feel like they can feel. Like, that's the big thing. They feel like, I don't have time to not have any energy. I
but
don't
we've
have
long
time.
done that to black men
right.
in this country.
And that's the thing. And I always tell my men that you have feelings and you are human. And even though you have strength to do certain things,
physical strength,
right? You have physical strength, but you still are a human being,
right.
And it's okay to feel. And so, grateful that they allow themselves to have therapy so that they have a space where they can understand their feelings. They can get it out and they can process it. Same with my women, especially my super women that are doing it all, and letting them know that it's okay for you to feel, and explaining to them, what the different responses are so that they can understand, like the physical stuff. Because a lot of times we look for emotional stuff, and it does show up. The psychological stuff does show up, but it often shows up in our body, where our blood pressure is up and we don't know why, we're not sleeping, and like all those different things. And I tell people, look for the signs that your check engine light is on.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, let me tell you, I got this watch initially to measure my steps because you girls
Gotta
trying
get-
to she's lost about 16 pounds.
Come on,
and-
healthy,
and I'm,
sexy,
you
yes,
know,
come
and
on.
I'm trying to lose even more, keep losing, and so. But then I was reading an article about deep sleep and how you need 2 hours of deep sleep,
That REM
and that
sleep.
the lack of deep sleep. We can connect to maybe plaque on the brain, which then connects to Alzheimer's. Now, my mother has dementia, which probably the product of 7 strokes.
Yeah.
Right, but it is dementia and high blood pressure, diabetic, morbidly obese,
Yeah.
and so all of those things. At 62, I'm like, okay, I've been trying to check myself,
Right,
get
because
myself
I
together.
can do something different here.
So
Let's go.
so now I don't care about the steps no more. I care about her sleep. We
Like,
need to get sleep.
am I sleeping like I'm supposed to?
Am
When
I
am I not
sleeping?
resting so I can figure out what I need?
Right.
Yes.
The role that sleep, and that to me is a sign.
Yes.
Anxiety's on 10.
Because now my brain won't shut
Won't
down.
shut-
I'm
yeah.
constantly going, and it's like those are the things that it's really, we really have to learn how to check on ourselves. We really have to learn that. It's like we are, like I say, with your check engine light, we run around here, and just because the car keep moving when your check engine light come on, don't mean that it doesn't need to be checked.
And it's about to be on the side
Exactly,
of the road.
and we don't want to wait until the car breaks down before we find out what's going on. And so that's the thing. Be mindful. That's why it's important for you to spend time with yourself. Do body scans. Check and see how you actually feel. Spend time with you.
Like, let me start here.
Start from the top of my head to
yeah.
the tip of my toes.
Yes.
What's going on? What are
Yeah.
the sensations? How am I feeling? What's going on? How's my breathing? What are the thoughts that are going through my mind? Like all of these different things. With chaos, we talk about intention, attention, and attitude. Be intentional about the things that you're doing. Get off of autopilot because we're not Teslas. So I'm gonna need you to drive your own car. Be intentional about it. Question yourself on why you're doing things because sometimes we're using outdated patterns for new things. And so, like, be intentional. Attention. Be aware of who and what you're giving your attention to because we are creatures of habit. So we may just be going to the places because we used to going to the places,
Right.
but not paying attention to how we feel when we get there.
Right.
We may be dealing with the people and talking to the people that we usually talk to, but not paying attention to how we feel.
Like, I really don't even like this place.
I don't even like
I really
you.
don't even.
But I'm calling you because I've been talking to you every Sunday for the past 15 years.
Don't even really like
I don't
you.
even like Agnes, but I keep calling her.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, and then it's attitude. If anything that you are doing impacts your attitude in a negative way, make adjustments.
Stop doing that.
Stop just
Stop
sitting
going
in.
there.
Stop just sitting in.
Stop saying that.
Yes.
Stop being around them.
Yes. So it's like, I tell people all the time, change don't happen until something changes. And so therefore you have to be willing to make the changes. And that it's hard, but we know what it feels like to hurt and hold on.
Right.
So we deserve to know what it feels like to heal
As
and
you were
move
talking about the
forward.
car and the check engine light, I just thought of something that we are right now saying to our son, you need to get an alignment on your car.
Yes, come on,
And so
alignment.
if you don't get an alignment, the tires we just bought are going to wear out
Yes.
prematurely
Yes.
because you're not aligned.
Yes, and that's the same thing with you.
Same thing with you.
If you so we'll say mind, body, and soul.
Right.
If you are not in alignment,
on
then
all
that
of
means
those.
that you are putting more pressure on something else.
And you say it shows up first.
And so it starts showing up physically.
Yes.
And so then if it's not showing up, then once it's showing up physically
And
and then it starts showing up emotionally.
You're snapping.
And now it's showing up is and now it's spiritually. So my spirits are low. I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
So you go from now I ain't eating like I was eating. Now I'm gaining or losing weight. I got headaches all the time. My
Yeah.
blood pressure up. And now I'm arguing with people. I'm short with people. I'm anxious about things. And now I feel hopeless and I feel like it's always gonna be here. So now I'm isolated and I'm not talking to
Right.
people. It's you're right. A misalignment.
Misalignment.
So the thing I would say for y'all out here listening, ask yourself, what does it look like to be in alignment, and work toward getting there.
and work towards that because you
Yes.
deserve that.
Because you deserve it. We've been living in survival for so long. And a lot of us never even learned how to do anything but survive.
anything because that's what you
That's
saw
what
your mother
that's what
do.
we were taught to do.
That's what you saw auntie do.
Like I just had a conversation with my mom last night, and something happened that triggered her. And I told her, I said, hey. I said, when was the last time you had to think like this? And she was like, she stopped, and she was like, it's been a long time. I said, because you don't live there anymore.
All right, I got to ask you a couple other things. I want to ask you about anxiety, and then a couple of weeks ago, I spoke at a church, and there it was a Women's Day event, and their theme was building character. And one thing that I said to them was, "How many people do you know that say, well, that's just me?"
Yeah, and that's who you are based off of what's happened to you. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's it. It's so you can decide what you want it to be, what you want it to look like. You can decide. You're like, okay, if I don't like how I am right now, then what do I want to be different? But that the thing is, when people be like, it's just who I am. No, it's who you are based off what you've been through. It's who you are based off of what you've had to do for you to be able to survive
And
whatever it is.
you can be different.
And you can
You
be.
do not have to be the one who is trigger happy, or
All
not
the
trigger
time.
happy, trigger angry.
You don't have to be the person that's hyper vigilant and jumping at every bit and
Right.
thinking that everybody is against you. You don't have to be that person, but you have to unlearn the things that you thought were right and relearn a new way of doing things. So you have to be willing to, we talk about it with chaos, is raw, realize the issue, admit how it's impacting you, and be willing to work to create a new normal.
Okay.
You got to do the work. Don't just accept that this is just the way that I am. No, what happened to me? How did I get here? And then what do I need to do not to be here anymore?
Right. Last question is about anxiety,
Yes.
because we are talking about Thanksgiving's coming, Christmas is coming, and we so many have unrealistic expectations about how romantic it's going to be and how wonderful everybody's going to receive everything.
Yes.
Everybody's supposed to be happy this time of the year, and that is not
True.
the case.
Yes.
And so what does anxiety look like in this season? Is it any different than any other time of the year?
I don't think it's any different, but I think it's heightened.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that, because of the unrealistic expectations, because you feel like oftentimes this is where our fawners, FAWN, our
Okay.
fawners thrive, because our fawners want everything to be all right. They don't want nobody to be sad. They want everything to be good. They want to take care of everything. So this is where our fawners start burning themselves out. This is where they start cooking 700 pies because they're making 10 for the church and 2 for grandmama house. And then, cousin Trisha got to have 3 pies and all this. And you tired because you still working a full-time job. You got 2 kids and 2 dogs and you doing all of it. But you take all of that on your own, on yourself. Or when you are, you're anxious about your bills and stuff getting paid because you wanted your kids to have this because you overcompensating for something that they probably didn't have.
Right.
And so therefore now you done spent all this money and now you worried about what's going to happen on the 26th. What's going to happen the day after Thanksgiving because we done spent all this money on Thanksgiving food, but then what we going to eat until we can get some money for something else. The anxiety is real, but what you have to do is you have to focus on what can you control. That's it. Be present in the presence of what's actually happening. Because another chaos skill is reset. Remember every situation encourages thought. Like if I got this thought that's coming in. Okay, I know Thanksgiving is coming and we got to do ... all these things. Do we have to have all of this? Is there anything that can be taken back? Or is there a way that we can make this is this manageable? Is this unrealistic? And if it is, how do we make it realistic?
And be okay.
And be
with
okay with it, because you're not failing if last year you had 3 turkeys, 1 baked, 1 fried, and 1 barbecued, and this year you only have 1 turkey because you can only eat turkey salad and you can only eat turkey sandwiches for so long. And so it's like, what
You're
do
not
you
failing,
need?
you said.
You're not
Yeah.
failing. So
Yeah.
give yourself grace.
Talk to me, Candice.
And just because it looked this way last year don't mean it got to look this way this year.
I said last question, but then I certainly thought of the political season that we are in and that we have come through.
Yeah.
And for those Black folks who are feeling anxious about the political landscape changing, and for those who might come together at dinner and find out you're the Black person who voted.
Yes.
Right. So,
y'all, here we go. I need y'all to remember that we've been here before. This ain't the first time that we are walking into what we are walking into in January. We survived it before. We will survive it again. Focus on what you can do, not on what you can't. And people are going to have different opinions. And if they do, allow them to feel how they feel, allow them to choose how they choose. And if it's something that you have to remove yourself from, it's okay to put boundaries into place. But you don't have to sabotage a relationship just because somebody doesn't agree with you. But if it's harmful to you, it's okay for you to remove yourself.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I know our entire 9 PBS audience appreciates you because they can see you as a part of Teaching in Room 9 often, see you on 9 PBS television often, and now on, again, for the second time, on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. Thank you so much for trying to help us have a realistic, joyful holiday season.
And that's it. And let's just take the joyful out, just say have a realistic season.
All right.
That's it. Give it to yourself. Allow yourself to feel your way through. That's it.
Thank you, my dear.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. Forgive, release, embrace, and elevate. Among the many notes I took that I'm taking away from this conversation. We wish you a wonderful holiday season. Whatever that looks like, you get to choose.
Yes.
How about that? Listen, St. Louis will be back after the Thanksgiving holiday. We are prepping for season 2. My friends, season 2 starts January 9th, and we have so many things in store. Can't wait for you to be part of all of it. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy holidays to you from Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center, the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation, and Orvin and Latrice Kimbrough.